This is a typical tent that was used and still used in the wilderness during the wintertime today. Boughs are put on the ground. A fur is put on that for your mattress, and another fur on top of you to stay warm, because they figure the animals stay warm and they can help you stay warm. The tent also has this little stove that they carry around in their sleds, and they can fix it up so that they can stay warm in the wintertime even today. This is a parka made from different kinds of fur, and each fur has a meaning, and each tassel on this parka has a meaning. The fur around the face is very important to keep the cold off of your face so that you can survive. Jedediah found him a bear. This is a grizzly bear skin, and a moose. Heating and cooking is on this old stove, and you have to have wood in order to use it. This is a typical house, modern house nowadays on the river. The logs are still used because they are so good for insulation. Back at the gift shop, we met up with Lance Mackey. He was signing his book. Lance is the current Iditarod champion. He has won for 2007, 8, 9, and 10. And he's the only person to win 4 consecutive times. So in March, we'll look to see if he wins for the 5th time. Then we boarded the bus for a gold dredge. We were fed a hearty miner stew, and at the dredge we were told how they used hot water to go into the gravel to thaw it out, and used a bucket line to bring gold up so that they could pan it and find gold in the mountains. Then we were put on a little small train to go into a mine shaft, and told that anytime we thought we saw gold, to make sure it was not fool's gold. Fool's gold will crumble, and it's very lightweight. Real gold nuggets, or little flecks and particles, will float down to the bottom in water and also will not crumble. This is a steam engine that was used to heat the water so that they could shoot water through these hoses, hot water through the hoses into the mountainside to thaw the gravel so that they could mine for the gold. At the gold mine, we were greeted by the owner and then taken on a demonstration of how they currently pan for gold. Dirt and water are released down this trough. The gravel is caught by the different screens in the bottom, and then the dirt that's in the bottom might have gold in it because the top level has rocks in it. And this dirt is what they're putting in these pans, and they put more water in that and swish it around until the finally they get all the rocks out, and hopefully they have some gold left. Now, these bigger nuggets were not found that day, but this is the owner showing us some that she has found in the past. Then we were allowed to go and pan for our own gold. And most all of us found a little bit of gold in our bag of dirt that we were given. Then we were invited to go into the gift shop to buy some jewelry so that we could display our gold. There were a lot of prospectors that became sourdoughs. They became sour because they could not find any dough. This is a nugget that was found in 1995 in the interior of Alaska, 19 ounces. Also, this day we went by the Alaska pipeline. In 1868, massive oil deposits were discovered underneath Prudhoe Bay in the Arctic Circle. So the 800-mile Alaskan pipeline was built to transport oil to Valdez. And you can see from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez is 800 miles. This is a mileage chart at the visitor center of the pipeline. The pipeline is 48 inches in diameter. There are 10 pump stations along the line, which can move up to 745,000 barrels of oil per day. Oil began to flow in 1977. The orange lining is called a pig, and it improved the flow of oil through the pipeline. It would also detect potential problems. The pipeline is highly monitored today, and it goes from the Arctic Ocean to Valdez. Half of the pipeline is above ground and half of it is below ground. That evening we went to a salmon bake in Fairbanks. We entered through a mine shaft. It was buffet style, and it was very good. It was a big complex, so we went on a walk. This is a carved salmon, but it was too wild to ride and too high to get up on. This steam-operated shovel was used to help dig the Panama Canal, and it had also been used in the interior of Alaska to dig for the highway and also for gold. Memories. This is a cache. It is a house on stilts that's used to store food and other items that animals might get into. We had a vaudeville show that night, and these were our entertainers, and it was an excellent show. On Saturday, it was a rainy day. It was the day we were supposed to ride the train to go to Denali National Park. We rode 4 hours in this domed car from Fairbanks to Denali. Since it was rainy, we fogged up the windows whenever we had heat. We did see wildlife, some moose from a distance. We had a Holland representative to narrate the trip for us. Lots of curves along the way. We also passed by Healy, which is where a young man died in an old school bus after being in the Alaskan wilderness for 100 days. The movie Into the Wild and the book Into the Wild were written about this, and the movie was filmed in the area. This water is still gray due to the glacier silt. We got to the Denali area and to our lodge. Our lodge is very comfortable and rustic, and since we did not get to see sheep on Sheep Mountain, we decided to take a picture of this one. This is our lobby. It was very cold and rainy that day, so we were glad to have a fireplace. After a quick lunch, we met our wilderness tour bus and rode 4 hours into the park looking for wildlife. This is a typical scene along the way. A lot of moose that were seen at a distance, and black spruce. The black spruce has foliage at the bottom that can be boiled, and it has antibiotic properties to it. This is a beaver lodge we saw along the way, one of the many. They'd had snow the night before because there was so much rain, and it snowed on the mountains, and they were excited about that. This is a trapper's cabin out in the park that was actually used in times past by trappers, and also they would use this cabin to cook for the trappers. It's used today by the patrols who spend the night out in the wilderness and patrol the park. Private vehicles may go 15 miles into the park, but they have to stop at Savage River. If you're on bus, by foot, or gravel and have a permit, you can go further into the park, even up to 92 miles. We had an Athabascan native to explain her present-day culture. There are checkpoints along the way so that they can know who is in and out of the park and make sure that everyone's accounted for and safe. This is the Denali Park Preserve sign. Denali is an Athabascan name for the high one. It also refers to Mount McKinley, the highest point in North America, which is over 20,000 feet. The first successful climb to Mount McKinley was in 1913. This park is 6 million acres, and it was the first park developed to conserve wildlife, and it was developed in 1917. There are no trails. You just make your own trail when you do hiking. The vegetation and the trees are hardy since there is a lot of ground cover, since the ground is frozen most of the time, and the ground is called permafrost. That means it stays frozen for 2 years. There are over 600 varieties of wildflowers. These are wild blueberries, and they said in July they would be in abundance all over the park, and some more wildflowers. The wildlife in the area include many kinds of birds, the bears, the caribou, moose, foxes, and wolves. We did not get to see Mount McKinley because it was so cloudy and rainy. On Sunday morning, we took a jet boat on the Nenana River. Our guide was a third-generation Alaskan. It was a foggy morning, and it had snowed again the previous night. After the boat ride, we toured the camp. We were amazed at this log that was there with the big knots in it. And you can see how big Alaska is, and that's right next to Russia there, and right at the top part of Canada. This is the camp, and they have antlers everywhere on the doorway or on roofs of different houses. They fed us hot chocolate and fried bread for our snack. Now our guide traps in the wintertime, and he had trapped all these furs. There's a beaver, there's a couple foxes, and several wolves. Now the parka that's hanging up there is a caribou parka. It is made, of course, out of caribou hide, and the hide is on the outside, the fur is on the inside. And that type of parka is one that they use when they mush, which means they drive the sled, which is right there. And mushers have to be dressed very warm to be able to survive the extreme cold. Dog mushing is Alaska's state sport. Our guide owns several gold mines that he mines in the fall, and he showed us how he does his. He can pan 800 pans of dirt in a day to get 1 ounce of gold. That doesn't sound like much, but an ounce of gold is worth about $1,200. He traps for furs in the winter and gives tours in the summer. He also has timber that he cuts. Planes are a very common mode of transportation in Alaska. We then went to the train station for our trip to Anchorage that day. It was going to be about an 8-hour train ride. This is the train that we had been on the previous day and that we're going to be on that day. You can see the bottom section is the dining part. The top section is the very spacious area where we can sit and look out the dome at the beautiful scenery, which was very prevalent all along the way. If you pass another train, you must make a moose call. We imagined seeing a lot of moose, and there was one that we saw in this scene. More beautiful winding rivers, and still gray because of the glacier silt. This depot at Talkeetna is very important because it's where hikers get off the train or travel by car, and it's the gateway to Mount McKinley. These are where the hikers get to so that they can start their trek to Mount McKinley. We had another great narrative all day. I admired our server's flowers, and she brought me a bouquet of them. We rode through Wasilla, and it says Iditarod restart. The Iditarod actually starts in Anchorage, but it is so congested with people that they have to wait till they get to Wasilla and restart the Iditarod so it'll be fair to everybody. Wasilla is also the duct tape capital of the world because it says there's more duct tape sold at the Walmart there than any other Walmart. Wasilla has pretty mountains around. These are the mountain ranges getting into Anchorage, and this is a scene of a street in Anchorage, and it still has the mountain range around it. We got to Anchorage in time to eat and sleep, get on our transportation the next morning for the Ted Stevens Airport. And this airport is named for Ted Stevens, who died recently in a plane crash. He was a former senator. We flew to Chicago. This is a scene of the mountains from our plane. We flew to Chicago. Our 2-hour layover turned into 6, so we made good use of the time, and we had a great trip. We got back to Atlanta the next morning about 2 o'clock. Enjoyed this great trip to Alaska.